Hello everyone, what a weird couple of days for the meta after Arisham's release. He has been one of the single most impactful cards, whether he's long-term good, long-term bad, he has been everywhere. He can do so many cool creative things that I don't know that we fully dove into everything yet that he can do, but one thing is for sure that he shakes up the meta in a very big way. Now we're seeing regular decks just running Hawk. Really anything is just throwing Hawk into it just as a way to potentially overpower them or surprise that opponent that's running Arisham to find a cheap way to win. And I don't know that any other card has been released recently that I can think of that has done that. And so we have to build our decks now with that in mind, and that makes it very tricky because you want to do well into that matchup, but you want to be able to do well and perform well into everything else. So I feel like adding in a Hawk that doesn't have any enablers is a little bit cheap, especially as Arisham play rates start to drop. Right now his play rate's around 70 to 75%, which is ridiculous. But that will, I think, slow over time as people start transitioning back to decks that they're comfortable with, or they start finding ways to counter that Arisham. It's not just a cheeky throw in Hawk and hope for the best. And so today we are going back to a very comfort list, and that is junk, that is Clutter. And with this one, typically I would only run like one counter component in either like a Cannonball or a Shang-Chi, but with this one, and with how big Arisham decks can get, I think we need both. We need to have a consistent way to clear up and swing back a location after we use Doc Ock, after we fill up that location. And so we have the turn number 7 that allows us to draw into our additional resources. And once they have those lanes cluttered, a lot of times you can find those creative ways to win. And so a lot of times our early game is going to be skips. We're going to skip for maybe the first 2 or 3 turns of the game. And then we're going to utilize our clutter components in White Widow, Green Goblin, Debris, and to an extent Titania to be able to cap out one of their locations, and that gives us that freedom to choose one of the other lanes to either cap out or to high power push so that we can use Cannonball or Shang-Chi to swing it back in our favor on the last turn of the game. And just a quick plug, we are live probably right now, so if you like watching live streams, we are live on twitch.tv/TLSG Snap, so jump over there. You can pause the video, come back to this one later. I would love to have you. I'd love to see you there. But otherwise, we're going to be jumping into a couple of games. Thank you guys as always for being here. I hope you guys enjoy. Alright everyone, first up we have All-Knowing Turtle. The first location is the sewer system, and with this deck we're typically going to skip the first couple of turns until we get a few additional resources. That way they have a chance to play a few of their cards out. We have a better chance to understand where we can potentially clog them up at. And we get a better feel for what kind of deck they're running. So we're running against an Arisham deck, very, very common. And this deck does decently well. And that's actually why we added in 2 counterplay measures in both the Shang-Chi and Doc Ock. That way we have multiple ways to address things that the opponent are going to have. They're always going to have some kind of either blob or Hawk or something really big that we need to be able to handle. The third location is Bar Sinister. I'm going to go ahead and use magic over there. We're going to rip it away. I don't need the duplication from that lane unless we could sneak in like a Green Goblin. But I don't want to give them the chance to get anything great either. And so they play a card into sewer system. And right now with Arisham decks, it's wild. You don't know exactly what is going to be what. You just kind of have to roll with the punches for the most part. We're going to skip on 4, and we typically won't see very many cards. But you can always be fairly confident that they're going to have a blob built in. They're going to have those counterplay measures, so like the Shang-Chi, the Rogue, the Mystique. And then a lot of times you're going to see big cards like Goliath teched in. And a lot of them are running Hawk as well. And so we do have Dagger. We have Dagger, Iron Fist, Ghost Spider, so that's a great way to swing one location back in our favor after we counter another with something like Shang-Chi. And so I think we will go ahead and I'm going to pull into the right just so that we flood them completely out. And they do play one of their cards, so we're only going to pull a few of them. Mystique comes down, fantastic. It copies the Ghost, we're perfectly fine with that. Hawk does come down, so we are going to need the Shang-Chi, and then Rogue, and then Infinite. And so Shang-Chi here actually is going to be too low for us. But if we're able to eventually do like Cannonball there, we can push the Infinite out. It's only going to be an 11 power lane. And so we could always do a Cannonball into like Ghost Spider to pull it out, because this would be 11 or a little bit less as we draw cards next turn. As long as we don't push the Infinite into the lane that we're competing for, then we'd be okay. Okay, so they drop 3 cards, Quinjet, they drop Loki, so they're only going to copy one of our cards, and most likely it's not going to be great. And then the Havoc comes down. They're going to be able to play 6 cost card here. But I think we do the Cannonball. Let's go ahead and Ghost Spider it over. If they play a Shang-Chi here and take out the Red Hulk, that's fine. We're going to play Cannonball, move this over. They would be 7, and then we'd be able to beat it with just the Cannonball and whatever's left here. We can also do Iron Fist to move him over as well, but just for good measure, I'm going to play Iron Fist over to the right. Actually, just in case this is an Alioth for some reason. No, if it's an Alioth, we win with just the Red Hulk. So we're going to lock this in. They did snap on the last turn. A lot of times you're going to have Arisham decks have really weird snap lines, and I think we're in a comfortable spot here. And so let's run the Cannonball. We hope that they play something in mid, but something that is beatable. And so the Cannonball comes down, it takes out the Infinite. Let's pull our Cannonball over into mid. That way we win the right way at lane. We have a big push in mid. So the Shang-Chi. The Shang-Chi is that kind of target for the very big Red Hulk that we threw down. But knowing that that is a very common build and a very common line, we were able to use Ghost Spider to make sure that we had enough while impacting that additional lane. And so we will grab the 4 cubes, and it feels really good to be back on the winning side of these things. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. Wow, that's unfortunate. So second dinner, if any of you guys watch my videos, get them. So the first location is X-Mansion. We have the Iron Fist, we have Dagger, and the good thing about X-Bench is we know it's typically going to get flooded just naturally. If they play their first card there, it's going to have a second one at bare minimum, and so it's a little bit easier to eventually cap out that location. Second location ends up being Murder World. We're going to skip on 2 as we look for some more Clutter resources. They skip as well, absorb with the Sunspot. We have our Green Goblin, which is so beautiful now. Green Goblin, next turn we could even do like Titania into like an Iron Fist to make sure that we completely cap out that left lane on them. And it'll push their way. We can always use Dagger to push into that left lane after the fact. And so with the Sunspot, typically you're gonna expect to see like a high Evo build, which is what we're seeing. The Hit Monkey comes down for them, and then Dr. Doom is not a bad one, but our middle one gets destroyed. So I guess maybe it's not a great one. It does give us a free body in Mojo World though, which is nice to see. And so for here, depending on what we think they're going to do, I think we do this. I think we do Titania and then Magic. If they play a card here, it's not going to matter. Titania is going to be set on this side. If they don't, then we're going to push Titania. We're going to lock them out of the left lane. And then we're just fighting for one other lane at that point. Because we always have the cheap play like an Iron Fist to resummon the Titania back. We can always end up doing a Dagger over into that location to get 12 power if their Sunspot ends up scaling too atrociously. We do have Shang-Chi primed and ready. We have the Cannonball play. I kind of think we Cannonball Red Hulk and then feel it out from there. So in mid, they play just the high Evo. Mid ends up being almost capped out. We could potentially look to do like maybe a Debris if we draw into it. Not sure if we'd be able to win from that point. But White Widow does allow us to push to cap out that location if we wanted to. What if we did our big power play now? I assume they play over here or skip. And if they skip, Sunspot's going to get pretty big. Dagger's going to make sure, or White Widow's going to make sure that we have this lane capped out. And And then we have our 1 additional turn. All right, perfect. And so the wave coming down, that makes our Red Hulk 4. So Sunspot would be able to scale in this last turn. So Dagger's going to be very, very big here. But
victory
is what it is. But assuming that they drop the 4 cost card and this absorbs the additional 3, that still doesn't match what we currently have here. We will gladly take the 2 cubes, and that's why we snapped early. That's why we played it aggressively. We'll take the 2. Let's jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have a rank 51 Rain Man. The first location is Monster Island, and they're running a Hawk deck, of all things. You're going to be seeing a lot of that very, very frequently. So we do have Green Goblin and White Widow. We could look to completely cap out either the left or the right lane. We have magic to rip away Elysium eventually. I think we do the left, just in case this is like a bounce deck. So the White Widow on the right, let's see what they have for us in the left. The Ravona, interesting. All right, so the Ravona comes down. Do they cap this one out? Or do they have any movable cards? I'm very curious. We could always do White Widow and then magic to rip away Elysium. Or we can rip away the left lane instead. And so if the left lane is going to be capped out, I do want to rip away the left lane. That way we can make sure that unless they have Legion, they can't do anything to stop that turn 7 play. And that allows us to really slow play some stuff. It will give a big discount on their cards, but they're already running relatively low. We can do...
opponent snapped.
Interesting.
Oh, snap.
How are they going to win the left lane? Unless they have like an onslaught for it, which would be wild. They don't know what we're going to cap out there. Okay, so the Iron Lad, and that hits Sage, which is not huge, but it is an 8-power Iron Lad. And then Snow Guard. Interesting. So they were going for being able to rip away turn number 7. But they are capped out here. I'm going to go ahead and throw Red Hulk just to let them know what's coming. And we do get the retreat after the Clutter comes through. We will gladly take the 4 cubes. 4 cubes on turn number 5. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have L. The first location is the X Mansion, which with a Clutter deck, the more time that you watch me, the more times I'll say this. I love X Mansion when I'm running a Junk or Clutter deck, because that's going to be one of the lanes that typically has, they will play a card or 2 there, and then we have the means to clutter it further. At the very least, it gives a free resource into each one of these lanes, and so it comes that much closer to being capped right off the bat. And so they drop Fastos on 2, which is fantastic when it works. And then Grand Central will pull into one of their cards. I don't really care for that, so I'm going to go ahead and magic into the right lane. I'd rather take that away, just because I think they'll get more benefit. Plus, a lot of ours are kind of precise. So we'll see. They do have Agent Coulson as well on turn 3, which is really big for them. A really good opening hand at the very least. And so Spider-Man 2099 and then Swordmaster discards their Loki. They're still running a version that does utilize Loki. So I think for this one, I'm going to try to play it a little safe. We're going to go Iron Fist Green Goblin. I don't have Doc Ock yet, so I'm not going to utilize it. Ooh, they have a Sarah for a deep discount on their cards. But Iron Fist Green Goblin is going to make it where we could potentially cap out their left lane if they played for it. But if they filled it, then we wouldn't have anything to worry about or any issues. So this one is already going to be a very big lead for us. And so then it comes down to winning one of the other lanes. I think part of how we do that is a Doc Ock in mid. And then we're just looking for like Cannonball to the left, Red Hulk is all that it's really going to take. And so let's snap into it. We're going to pull into mid. I don't necessarily care to pull all of their resources, because I think that's a little bit of overkill, especially with us having Cannonball lined up and in the pipeline. They play one card in mid, one card to the right. So Gamora is going to be a big hit in the middle location. That bumps it up to 12, unfortunately for us. And then what do we have that we pulled down? It didn't want to show us. Ooh, a Hell Cow is rough. Gets rid of Null and Arsham. I guess it didn't really hit him that bad. But we could do 19 power, and then we do have the Cannonball lined up, primed, prepped, and ready for that left lane. As long as they don't rip away mid, but we had another Arsham? Oh, it was created by Sacred Timeline. That is unfortunate. But let's go ahead and play the Cannonball, and then we can, just for giggles, we can play the Dagger. But by having initiative, we lose a little bit, but we are taking out that 7 power Swordmaster. So if they played 2 cards, this would be a rock. If they only played 1, they played it here, it would push it over here. They'd have the -4. Just put them in a really tough spot, really, really early. We'll take the 2, jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Random Guy 909. The first location is Stark Tower. We have Titania. We have Dagger if we end up getting some of their locations close to capped. And they're running a surprise Hawk deck. A lot of them have shifted over into like actual functional Hawk decks now that Arsham is a little bit less common, but I still really like, I would say, like a junk, like a hand junk Ronin style Hawk deck. And so right now we have most of this lane capped, which I really like to see. So let's go with something like maybe this. We'll make sure that Stark Tower's capped out. We have the ability to bring it back in by playing something into Stark Tower later on. Oh, they do play for that left lane. Interesting. Okay. And so the Rock Slide. Oh, it pulls over. Worked out in our favor. All right, let's rip one of these locations away. We can just win mid now, or win left now.
Oh, snap.
I'm going to go ahead and play Dagger. That's going to move over to the left. That's going to be plus 12. That should give us the capacity to win even outside of that, or even outside of pulling Titania back to our side. So the only thing that could save them would be like a Killmonger. Ronin is also pretty decent, but it gets very, very large. And of course, the Iron Lad pulls over into the middle location. So it could come down to who wins Baxter Building, but I think with Cannonball and Shang-Chi and the ability to rip it away with magic, I think we should have that one without any issues. Do we ever just Doc Ock now? We have such a big commanding lead in the left. Doc Ock, we use the Cannonball, Shang-Chi, whatever. I don't think we need to extend the game this time around. So they play 1 card. I assume it's Ronin. And then we're going to cap out the rest of the Baxter Building location with the Grandmaster first. Glad that was the first hit. And then Shang-Chi, definitely unfortunate. Mystique has the ability to copy the Ronin from the Iron Lad. Very unfortunate for us.
Go.
So how do we win from here? We have to do this number and in this order, because if we play 2 cards, that puts Mystique down to 8. With this, I guess we don't have to do it in this order. We don't have to play the Sentinel at all. But if we're going to play 2 cards, it has to be one that comes back into our hand. And so I'm going to do this. If they have a Doc Ock for some reason out of nowhere, then we get very sad as we lose. But otherwise, we're going to take out these 2 with the Shang-Chi play that swings the right back in our favor, and the left is already there. So the Maximus, definitely not what you want to play over there, my friend. The Maximus just gives us that extra little comfort room, being able to rip away both of the stacked up high power plays on the right. Even though Shang-Chi's going to get pulled over into mid, we still have the lead courtesy of the Sentinel that came from their Master Mold. We will take the 4 cubes where we can. I like what they were thinking. I like what they were cooking. It's just really hard to get consistently good value out of Master Mold. We'll take the 4. Let's jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have knfpoppen. And the first location is the Nexus, and that is beautiful for us. They're not running an Arsham deck, but that's also okay. A lot of times, non-Arsham decks that I've been seeing have really hamstrung themselves to make sure that they have a heavy advantage in that matchup. And so they have things like Hawk without enablers or just other kind of iffy things or questionable things. Now, the Nocturne in the right can move into the left to hit the Nexus. I'm going to go ahead and magic into the Nocturne lane because typically that's going to be a safe lane after that point. The biggest risk with magic is kind of waiting it out until after they drop Nocturne. But with this one, the Jeff, the Nocturne, the Medusa, I'm expecting a heavy like Wong, Odin, Namora style build. And so I'm going to push for Doc Ock in the left this turn. If they don't move Nocturne, then we're going to be stuck and allow the Nexus to remain. If they do move Nocturne this turn, then we're still going to cap out that left lane. They snapped on us. I'm going to snap back because I think we're okay. I wasn't going to, but I think they're, whatever they are, they're fairly confident. The Professor X in the left lane is super interesting because they can move Jeff over. They can move Nocturne over. They can also look to do the Namora stuff. I'm going to go ahead and play the Red Hulk and then see. I think they're looking at doing like some Namora style stuff. And so they could Namora here. That would bring this up by 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They could tie the left lane. They wouldn't be able to re-trigger it. Or if they did with an Odin, they'd win this one by a touch. They move the Nocturne, so they do change the Nexus location. And then they play 2 cards. We get a card out of it. We're not going to be able to draw on this next upcoming turn, unfortunately. Claw in mid is big. But we have the left lane locked in unless they move Jeff over. All right, let's do White Widow into Iron Fist and Dagger. And then I'm going to go ahead and float a Titania. I don't want to do something like Cannonball because that can push whatever we push into the Great Portal. And I don't really want that to happen. And so we're only going to play 1 card to the right. There is a chance that it sends their way if they play 1 card into Limbo. But we'll see. And so the White Widow comes down. They didn't have a space because they moved Jeff into mid. We're going to move Dagger over. So that's going to be 12 extra power in the middle lane. And then Titania is going to be safe over here. Captain Marvel comes in and pushes to the left. But we tie mid. We win right by more than they win left. And we are able to steal that one home. Very interesting decision to move the Jeff. Had it been here, it would have been an extra 5, 6, 7, 8. And speaking of 8, with that, we'll take the 8 cubes against knfpoppen, and it was knfpoppen for you tonight. After that one, you take a little bit of a break, but we will take our 8 cubes, and that is where we're going to go ahead and end the video. Thank you guys, as always, for being here. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. This has been TLSG. Later, guys.